Welcome to the WRAL Daily Download. I'm Luis Fernandez. Hurricane Erin continues to march its way through the Atlantic. Fortunately, it's expected to stay offshore. However, the storm will still bring serious impacts to North Carolina's coast this week. Governor Josh Stein has declared a state of emergency. We'll have coverage of Hurricane Erin's impact on WRAL, WRAL.com, and the WRAL app throughout the week. With the time of the year, coastal vacations are front of mind, especially with Labor Day fast approaching. Should you cancel? If you do, can you get a refund? 5 on Your Side's Keely Arthur joins us now to help you prepare and make decisions. Hey, Keely.
Thanks for having me. Hi.
So anyone that's scheduled North Carolina beach vacation for this time of the year, you have to be thinking about hurricanes. It's just a fact of life. What organizations do people turn to the most when looking to rent on the coast?
Yeah, I mean, you're so right. And during the hurricane season, some weekends are beautiful. And so you really don't know. And this is really their peak travel season is the summer, and that's hurricane season as well. So we always hear from people a mix of things. They'll book hotels, Vrbo, Airbnb, and then there are those kind of smaller companies that are on the coast that also are property management companies that will host families at condos, houses, things like that.
So let's just go ahead and run through those then. Do these different groups have severe weather or natural disaster cancellation policies?
So they have cancellation policies and some have severe weather. So the one thing I want to tell you, and do you want me to kind of just break those down?
Sure.
So for hotels, I will say they have the least stringent cancellation policy. That's kind of why I love booking with hotels. You usually look at the fine print, but usually as long as you cancel within 2 to 3 days of the start of the trip, you're fine. They're going to give you a full refund and no questions asked. They're not going to ask you why. Airbnb and Vrbo are very different. It's really up to the individual host. Now, Airbnb and Vrbo have these overarching policies. Vrbo has something like, it's kind of like an unexpected situation policy. That's not the exact name of it, but basically what it says, it's unforeseen circumstances policy. There you go. If you have something like that, and it could be a number of things. It could be a weather event. It could be like a big power outage or something that's going on in that city that you were traveling to. Something like that happens, they'll cancel your stay, no questions asked. You're going to get that refund back. But Airbnb and Vrbo both say, look, if you're booking a trip in an area where hurricanes happen during hurricane season, if you're booking during hurricane season and a hurricane comes, unless there's a mandatory evacuation, we will not give you a refund. So you need to be really careful. And basically hotels, it's kind of cut and dry. Vrbo, Airbnb, it's very there's all these different kind of choose your adventure routes.
Okay, so let's take a quick break right there. When we come back, what North Carolina officials are saying about cancellations ahead of Hurricane Erin. Welcome back to the WRAL Daily Download. We're talking with 5 on Your Side's Keely Arthur about what refunds you're entitled to when something like a hurricane cancels your vacation plan. So, Keely, who did you speak with just about these kind of policies and situations in general on the North Carolina coast?
I spoke with Whit Tuttle. He is the executive director of Visit North Carolina, which is essentially the tourism bureau for the state. And he is always a great resource for me when I'm working on these stories where we're covering whether it's the mountains or the coast. There's a big weather event. People love traveling to those areas. So we at 5 on Your Side always get questions from consumers on that front. And the one thing that Whit told me is the law is really on the side of the consumer in North Carolina, which is pretty amazing, and it's not always the case. So basically, in the state of North Carolina, if you booked somewhere that is in a mandatory evacuation zone, so like right now, I think Dare, Hyde counties, parts of it, and Ocracoke and Hatteras Islands are under that mandatory evacuation for Erin. If you booked through those or booked in those areas and you want a refund, you can get one. Basically, if you've booked in a mandatory evacuation zone, you are able to get a refund, no questions asked. And that's really kind of what I want people to take away most from this discussion.
Has he heard from anyone who's had kind of struggles with this kind of situation?
Yeah, he is monitoring it right now. He told me that he hasn't personally heard from anyone yet, but if you go on Facebook or any social media platform, you're definitely hearing from people. I mean, it's like one of the last weekends of summer, and people are trying to fit those trips in before school starts. And so there's definitely a lot of people in that boat. So really find out. Call the county. The county makes that decision on whether or not there's a mandatory evacuation. Call the county and find out if there is one. And if there isn't, again, kind of refer back to those policies that you and I discussed before the break.
Now, I mean, all day on Tuesday, seen all kinds of videos of people still on the beach. There are still people out there. There are still people doing their thing, even if they should be staying out of the waters because of rip currents and things like that. But have you personally, in your work with Five on Your Side, ever had someone kind of come across this situation where you all have had to do your thing?
Yeah, we have. And I will say anecdotally, the most difficult group that we had discussed to get a refund from is Verbo. It's really tricky, but I think we've had 100% success with Verbo. Last year, I dealt with a lot of these issues with the mountains in Hurricane Helene when everyone was going up there for the fall season and Helene hit. People had booked houses to stay at, and they were having a really hard time getting refunds. And I know this is about hurricanes, but I want to say the mountains, the way the law is written, this mandatory evacuation law, the mountains don't really put out mandatory evacuations. So it was really hard to get people refunds on the mountains because the counties hadn't issued that ever. And so the law didn't kick in. And that's why, at least on the coast, people are a little bit more protected in that way. But yeah, the best advice I can give anyone right now is don't wait until the storm to scramble and figure out what the policy is. Know what the policy is before you book. Make sure it's a good and flexible policy, and then you will be fine.
Right. No, and we spoke about this a little bit before we recorded this podcast. This is not the first time you've done a story like this, right? It's if you live near an area that is impacted by hurricanes and you go on vacation, whether it's the mountains or the beach, you could see this impact your travel plans. When you spoke with the Visit North Carolina head, did he have any kind of advice that he gave to folks as well about how to handle these situations?
Yeah, he really just said kind of what I just said was parroting him. He really said, you need to do the due diligence ahead of time. It's going to take like an hour or two extra. And maybe you'll realize, hey, the place that is my first choice actually has a really bad cancellation policy. We're going to have to find another house or another hotel. But that's okay. Do that, because then you won't be between this situation where you're going, well, I don't want to go to the coast because there's a hurricane, but I also don't want to be out all this money. You got to really protect yourself. Knowledge is power, and look ahead of time. But WIT says, you still want to go on vacation on the coast during hurricane season. It's the most beautiful time of the year. And when I finished the interview with him, I asked, do you have anything else to add? And you had just talked about rip currents. That's what he said. He wants people to really get away from the water. It's so beautiful. After a storm, it's gorgeous out. Don't go in the water. It still could be really bad.
Yes, I know we keep saying the hurricane is not going to make landfall in the Carolinas, so that is good, but that does not mean the situation is, not dangerous. So please keep that in mind if you are listening and are taking a trip out to the coast. Thank you, though, to Five on Your Side's Keely Arthur for that great advice. Keely, thank you so much.
Thank you.
We'll have coverage of Hurricane Erin's impact on WRAL, WRAL.com, and the WRAL app throughout the week. I'm Luis Fernandez. Thanks for joining us. And thanks for listening to the WRAL Daily Download and for making us part of your morning routine. Another great way to get WRAL news is the Morning Briefing newsletter. It's a daily email with Triangle news, events, and headlines to help you get ready for the day. Sign up at WRAL.com/newsletter.